Hey there, hey, it is Michelle with Brilliant Quest. And today, we got something good. We're going to be talking about what the selfish get right and how to use it. So let's get on in here. And if you're wondering, where is she? I'm in my office. So just want to change it up a little bit and, get some sunlight in a different little area. And just like I said, change it up a little bit. So let's go on and get started. You know how we do around here. I'm going to tell you the main points we're going to make, and then we're going to go through each one of them. You're going to stick with me because it's great. I'm going to be giving you practical stuff. So without further ado, how the selfish get things right and how you can use them. So of course, you know me, I've got I got 4 points I want to make. And if you see me looking down, as usual, I am using my notes. So here we go. So what the selfish get right, and I'm not telling you to be selfish. I'm just telling you, like I said, we're going to use the points that are good for us. And in the South, we have a saying that says, eat the fish, leave the bones. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to eat the nourishment of what the selfish get right, but we're not going to become selfish. All right. So point number one is we're going to learn how to recenter ourselves so that we have a better and better aligned concept of self. So that's going to be the first one. The second one is we're going to learn in practical ways, in a mental process, of how to be more like the selfish when it comes to the C word. And that C word is comparison. And number three, we're going to learn how to position ourselves so that we stay in a point of power like the selfish do. But that power is to benefit us, not to, lord it over others. And then number four, we're going to make sure that we learn how the selfish use illusion and some delulu, but using it in a healthy way so that we too can do what we need to with intention to go forth and forward in a wonderful manner that helps us to preserve our sense of who we are. All right, so let's go and get into it. So the first one, we're going to be talking about how to get into a self-centeredness that allows you to be healthy, but does not encroach on other people's ability to do the same. A little while back, I did, and that's something. A little while back, yes, I've had enough. I've had enough time on here now that I can reference, older videos. So anyway, a little while ago, I did a video about Vanessa Lau. She is a digital marketer guru, if you will, and she took a sabbatical for about a year, and she just recently came back. And when she came back, she told her story about what led her to just give up everything, walk away, and now that she's come back. And the point that I want to make here with her story was that even with all her success, with all her businesses, trying to tell other people how to be successful online and all of this kind of stuff, she did what? She lost herself. She lost her center of focus, the concept of self. By her own admission, she said that she was trying so hard to be like others that when she would look at what she was writing, producing, and putting out, it didn't look like her anymore. And then she got to the point where she's like, I don't even know what I look like anymore. And so I wanted to just say that if it can happen to someone who is all about the business of being an influencer personality, it can happen for us too. So let's break that down a little bit. When we talk about the concept of self, we are talking not just about who you think you are. We are talking about your persona, which is the outward thing of what people see. The persona does not necessarily have to be how you feel about yourself. It is the outward projection of how others see you, okay? All right, so then we have the concept of our internal self. And sometimes you can think of the internal self as your character. And your character really comes down to who you are when no one's looking at you. Now, there is a reputational character that's attached to personas, but the concept of who you are inside is who you are when no one's watching. All right. Then we have, and sometimes these two can be fused together, meaning the character, and then we have the concept of the perceived self. That is the self that we fashion ourselves to be. It's where you try, whether you realize it or not, you try to imbue your persona with that perceived person as well as your character. And like I said before, it can be an amalgamation of them, or it can be something that drives you where you're never satisfied because you don't believe that your perceived self is being fully integrated into your character and to your persona. And that's where you can get dissonance, meaning, static, it's not lining up, it's not smooth. And that's where who you are, imposter syndrome comes in. So those are different little things. And what the selfish get really good about is alignment. Who they believe they are, who they see themselves as, and who they project to the world are tightly knit. And because of that, society does not like it. And the reason why society does not like this, now write this one down, y'all, is because the selfish are really good for self-advocation. They speak up for themselves. They do not care if it is out of alignment with what society's customs and contracts require. No, their sense of these three selves, and of course there's some more selves, but for the main part, these three will get you going. They are in alignment. They're like, I said what I said. I am who I am. If you don't like it, you ain't got to be here. I'm not going to fight you, but this is who I am. And I'm going to advocate for me. So that can sometimes look like greed. I'm not trying to laugh, but have you ever been, and this is just a hypothetical, have you ever been around that person where, say for instance, you guys are in line for food at an event? And that person, and the reason why I was laughing, because the Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan movie where he goes and eats all the caviar from around the little dish came to mind, and that's why I started giggling. But have you ever been in line and you see people in line before you, and they're picking through the food to take out the best parts, and you're like, what the what? You are looking at somebody who they are who they are, they say what they say, and they do what they do, because they're doing it out in the open. They're like, this is who I am. And I want all of these shrimp out of this shrimp salad. I want all of the caviar. I don't care if it's decoration and if it's meant for people to get a little bit. I want it, so I'm going for it, right? Now, of course, you don't want to be that quote unquote jerk. But what you do want to do is you want to embrace the freedom that they have to be themselves. Oh, yeah. When you're looking at the concept of self, it is your ultimate responsibility to take care of you. Now we have this golden rule, treat others as you like, them to treat you. And I'm going to give you just a slight little angle to it. And that is advocate for yourself as you would like someone else to advocate for you. Too many times we are not placating, we are playing this role of being a goody two shoes kind of person where we're slighting ourselves. And then get mad about it. Like, why, did I say yes when I meant no? Why, all this kind of stuff. And it is because there is some friction between these three, your outward persona. Your outward persona wants to look perfect and good. Your inward character wants to be like, well, I'm doing this because I don't want anybody to feel bad about me. I don't want anybody talking bad about me. And then your perception of self is saying, but we are powerful, strong. We are leader, so it's just causing issues. And by taking the idea and the understanding that you must get into the center of what it means to be yourself, it is going to cause you, hopefully, now that you've listened to Big Sis Michelle, it is going to cause you to advocate for yourself, speak up for yourself, do what it is you need to do for yourself. If you in line, now you don't be picking all through the food, but speak up and say, I like shrimp. I'm going to get at least 6 of these, and I'm going to make sure I leave some for others, but I like shrimp. I'm going to get at least 6 so I can be satiated. I'm not going to be greedy. Modification does work here. Okay. And then that's another thing. It wasn't in my notes, but I've been, because I'm going to do a full video on that. But there is this concept by Gretchen Rubin from the Happiness Project, where she talks about 2 types of people when you're trying to do something, establish something, or complete something. And that is, you can have moderators or abstainers. So you have moderators or abstainers. A moderator is someone who is adaptable. They can do a little bit here or there. They're really good at adjusting. They can do less if it's required, or do more if it's required. If, for instance, and you can look at this like when you're trying to eat properly, healthy, or something like that. A moderator is going to be like, you know what? I've been eating too much sugar. Let me pull back. And they might not eat a lot of sugar, to get their levels or whatever it is back in line. And they are able to do that. Whereas if you have an abstainer is an all or nothing kind of person. And the abstainer is someone who says it's either on or off. There are no in-betweens. I'm not even going to play about that. I know I'm a sugarholic. Either I eat it or I don't. I can't moderate, And so looking at the self-centeredness of what you need to do, make the decision. Not decision. I want you to make choices. A decision is if a decision has the word side in it. Homicide. Side means to cut. And so a decision is to cut away and only have one option left. So I'm going to just say, you don't have to make a decision. Make a choice. Make a choice. Try them out. Try out what it looks like for you to take the benefits of what the selfish do when it comes to the concept of self, when it comes to advocating for yourself? Do you need to flip a switch where you're an abstainer and you're saying, from here on, I don't let anybody walk over me. I don't let anybody get away with anything. It's either that or they will run all over me. Or are you a moderator where you say, you know what, I'm going to dial back a little bit here, I'm going to speak up a little bit there, and I'll be okay with it? Those are things that you need to take into consideration that are going to help you. So understanding the power of getting back into yourself in your center is going to help you to not only become a self-advocate for yourself, not only to remove the friction from the three selves we have: the outward persona, the character, and then the perception of who we want to be. But then you can also use the moderator or the abstainer model to help you with the practicality of starting to do this. All right, so good, we got that one. So the next one is going to be the no comparison. One of the most amazing things about selfish people, they don't compare themselves to you. You're not the focal point in their life. They couldn't care less what you do. They're going to do them. And that actually takes some moral fortitude to do that. Because in a world where we have FOMO, fear of missing out, we have where trends drive us, or whether you realize it or not, a trend drives you. I'm going to say something. The reason why I'm saying a trend will drive you is because trends have become so prevalent that our options are taken away in lieu of the trends so that companies can stay profitable. So say, for instance, you just want to have a tumbler to drink your water out of. And now everybody is trying to get you to get this Stanley cup or whatever. And you're like, I just want a tumbler. You go to Target or wherever you're going and you try to find a tumbler. And guess what? All the tumblers, whether they be Stanley cups or knockoffs, are all going to be reminiscent of this because of the trends. And I told you that little bitty, story because I want you to understand how hard it is to abstain. See how I use that? Abstain from comparison. Because when everyone around you is in this incestuous loop of comparing, of staying with the trend, it causes issues. It takes a mind that is stayed on centered me. It takes a mind that says, I don't care. I'll walk out the store and go to the Goodwill and just bleach a cup, the one that I want. I'm not going to, get into this whole keeping up with the Joneses kind or Johnsons or whoever, kind of situation. And so they tend to not compare themselves with others. And the wonderful thing about no comparisons is that as you get more and more to where you are not a person to compare yourself, do you know what starts to happen? You first and foremost start to become a leader of one, meaning you. And then if you continue it, you become a leader of some and then many. And with the leaders, and I've talked about this in a previous video about my epiphany understanding that there is a difference between leading and managing. And to lead is to have a vision. When you don't have a vision, you falter and you perish. When you have a vision, you have a direction, you have a focal point, you have an image of what you want. And that's hard to have if you're trying to always compare yourself. Because in the comparison, and we're going to be talking about positioning in just a minute, in the comparison, when you compare yourself to others, people don't realize it, but they only really kind of have two places that they really compare themselves if they're going to drive themselves. And that is colleague to colleague, meaning at the same level, lateral, horizontal, same level, or ahead, meaning that this person has something that you covet, you want, you desire, you want with great passion, you want their life or whatever. I remember a few years ago when these quote unquote friendship goals, relationship goals, and all of those hashtags started coming out. I was like, that is not a good thing, because that is comparison in the fact of longing, and it creates a void in you. Because you might say it's innocent, and you might even be thinking that you're saying it in an admirable way. But what it is really saying is there is a gulf between me and that, and I'm longing for it. And thus, I am using enough emotional strength in my projection of, oh, I don't have that. That's what I want. So that you actually start producing more of it, to where you'll never get those kind of quote unquote friendship goals. Now, and you can have all of the understanding in your mind where you're like, that's not perfect. That's social media. You can know that, but still covet and want that. And so with comparison, it's insidious. And then say, for instance, you compare yourself to someone who is behind you. That one's even bad because of course, it makes you snobbish. And let's just say a lot of selfish folks can definitely compare themselves to people that they think are beneath them. But you get into Schadenfreude, which is where you take either little sneaky pleasure or outright glee for someone else's downfall. I mean, we all have done it. That's why we have a word for it. And there are industries that make money on the whole comparison game. That's why I say it's really hard. So with Schadenfreude, it's like when you see someone who has been doing something for a while and they finally get their comeuppance. People like to hide behind, well, it's just karma. Not everybody who's done something like that gets the same treatment. So can it really be karma? But I'm not going to get into that philosophical questioning. I'm going to simply say that for us, the things that the selfish get right is they don't compare themselves to others. And if they do, it's probably going to be where are they looking down on people, but not that lateral and not that lusting for someone else. Because remember, they have got the self-centeredness down where they self-advocate. No matter what you think, want, or care, they don't care because they're going to make sure they take care of themselves. They understand the ultimate responsibility of being the one to speak up for themselves because they don't expect or wish or hope or think that anyone else will. They are their biggest cheerleader and advocate. And thus, they don't compare themselves to others because to them, they understand this fact that the more you compare, the more you slow yourself down because you're taking the time to be concerned with someone else. And that pulls you out of your ability to be self-focused and centered, to advocate for yourself, to moderate or abstain for those things that will pull you out of that. All right. So there we go. That's comparison. So let's get to the third one. And that is going to be positioning. Now, the selfish are really good about positioning themselves in a place of authority and power when it comes to them. A selfish person can be a homeless person or a dictator. But they are going to have the commonality of positioning themselves in a place of authority and power when it comes to them. There are cute little sayings that, sometimes tip you off to either a person is selfish or they're self-advocating. Things like, you're not the boss of me, or don't mess with my, whatever. Don't yuck my yum, different things like that. These are people who are positioning themselves as the authority and the power of themselves. And they're telling you, you don't have power over me. I have power over me. You can't tell me what to do. I am the one who tells me what to do. Now, why is that good? Or how can you make that good? Well, for one, when you're looking at positioning and authority, it helps you to build boundaries. Have you ever had a person where you've never discussed a certain area, but inherently how they will react? When I was in grad school, not college because I didn't have a car in college, but when I was in grad school, I had saved up, worked hard, and got my first little car. It was a Toyota Tercel. They don't even make those anymore. But I had a Toyota Tercel. And then there was another girl who came with a car, and it was really nice, much nicer than mine. And everybody around her, they were always driving her car. To the point one time she was like, can you take me? Or, can you take me to the store? This so-and-so's not back with my car and the store is about to close. I'm like, well, stop letting people use your car. And she's like, I don't know how to tell them no. And I'm like, what's going to happen if and when someone wrecks your car and they don't have insurance, that kind of thing. And so way back then, I remember trying to get her to advocate for herself and to stand in a position of power and authority when it came to her. And people knew, don't ask Michelle, she will hurt your feelings. I was raised by a sociologist who studied children's behaviors, and she taught us, she was like, I don't care if you have to squeeze your butt cheeks, close your eyes and yell it out. You speak your truth. You do not let people run over you. And my mom was like, use tact. Don't be mean, but speak your truth and stand on it. Do not let them talk you out of what is true and what is right for you. And maybe that was part of the upbringing I had, so that I always advocate for myself. Now, I will say this. There are times, and I did this other video about being shook and stunned when some things happen. So I did learn that my fight response, when things happen of danger or shock, is I freeze. But baby, once I get unfrozen, it is over. So if someone starts, abruptly going off on me, I'm probably going to get frozen for a minute, but I'm working on it, to not just be like, well, but once I get out of it, once the snap happens, it's on, where I advocate for myself and I stand in my power. And I'm going to tell you, I wish I could say, oh, just do this or do that. It takes work. Even with me being raised by a woman who taught me that, there have been times when life was exceptionally hard, and I kind of gave up a little of myself because of the unworthiness and, the question of deserving, and, maybe I should kowtow, because this person has been nice to me, so maybe I shouldn't say something when they're talking to me crazy. And I had to finally get out of that. I was like, no matter what someone else has ever done for you, and I'm talking to you, no matter what you think someone has done for you or what you think people will do for you or continue to do for you, you advocate for yourself. You stand in your personal power and authority. The selfish, they don't give a rat's turd of whether you paying them to do something or you are a benefactor or whatever. They are going to stand on business when it comes to them. That is something that they get right, and we must do it. And as you continue to do it, you get better. And as you get better, people know, don't try you. Do not come thinking that they're going to run ripshod over you to do things. They're not going to make assumptions about you, because inevitably, when it comes down to positioning yourself in authority and power, like the selfish are very clear on who they are and what they want, whether it be in the moment or just generally. They are really clear. And that's why they are so powerful, and why a lot of people don't like them, because they don't adhere to the societal expectations of be polite to the point of paying. Don't rock the boat. Don't speak up for yourself. Just grin and bear it and take it. And they're like, can't never. And they don't. And that's okay. And I'm grateful that we have them, because it takes a lot of, like I said, moral and intestinal fortitude to stand up for yourself and self-advocate. But positioning yourself in authority and power when it comes to you, don't lord over others. But that is something that the selfish do, that we all should learn, practice, and instill in ourselves. Now, that one would be one that if you're using the moderation and abstainer, abstain, on or off. I stand for who I am, or I don't. No in between. Stand for yourself and make it more often than not. All right. So let's go and get the last one. And that one is the illusion and the delulu of the selfish. Now, one thing about the selfish, now remember when I talked about they don't compare themselves to others? It can lead to illusions of grandeur. They can be a big deal in their own mind. Oh, yes, they can. They can believe that the world revolves around them. Oh, yeah, they can. But there is something to be learned about this. So let me look at my notes real quick. Okay, so with this, the thing that is good about how they can have these illusions of grandeur is that they tend to do it for their benefit and not their detriment. There's this word in the psychology world that's called dysmorphia. And dysmorphia traditionally has been about how you might perceive your body and how you don't see it correctly. And it's usually a deficit. It's where you are obsessed with a shortcoming, something that lacks, something that you're not pleased with, something that you can compare to others and think it's not worth it. And so dysmorphia is something that is prevalent, so much so that I'm going to be talking about it in another video when it comes to what's plaguing us right now and how this comparison culture has gotten people into a whole new hypothesis of dysmorphia that is ruining generations. Okay, so when you see that one, watch it. But when it comes to the selfish, that's not something they normally get into, because dysmorphia depends on comparison. You have to have something as the standard to say that you don't line up or you don't meet this standard. And so because the selfish, they don't care. I'm going to do me. they don't, I have seen people who have tried to police folk who don't have, that issue in public. I have seen them go up to them and, why are you wearing that? Because they want to. Now, unless they are showing straight up genitalia, leave them alone. Stop trying to force people into the prisons of societal expectations like you are. Just because they're free, like I said earlier, don't yuck, they're yum, those types of things. So with these illusions, and I'm not saying become delusional, I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, when you perceive yourself, do not get into the trap of comparison again, like I said before. Get into this area where, if you need comparison, which I think we do in some regards, compare yourself to yourself. I have this protocol that I'm working on, and there are some areas that deal with this. Like, for instance, this word is called satisficing instead of satisfying. And satisficing is where you do enough for it to be good, but you do not try to hit a perfect hole in one or a perfectionistic, everything is perfect every time. And so satisficing is where you get out of the people pleasing, you get out of the comparison, you get out of the areas that cause you to start to obsess over things, where you can just say, look, is this something that I am proud of putting out that gets the job done? Is it a B plus, where I was trying to get an A plus 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 plus? Is it maybe even an A minus? Go with that. There are some acronyms that we throw around all the time, but there's another one that I like, and the acronyms that we throw around are most viable product, or I'm sorry, minimal viable product. And that comes out of the software world, where they're like, look, let's get it out so that people can use it. And in the early 2000s, it was like put out fast, break often, fix as you go. So that it came out of that. And so then we moved into this word meta. And meta comes out of the gaming world. And meta, M-E-T-A, stands for most effective tactic available. And what I like about how the selfish matriculate in this world, in their sometimes delusions, is that they use meta, most effective tactic available, because they tend to stay in the now. Remember, they're great self-advocates. They are always instilling the fact that their priority is self. And out of self is how they deal with the world, so that when they're staying in the moment, they're not comparing themselves to you. They're not lusting after someone in front of them. They are able to use the most effective tactics available. All right. And so thus, that makes it where they don't fall into these dysmorphias. They don't fall into the delusions that bring them down. If anything, they use their view of the world to benefit themselves and bring themselves up. And so those are 4 things that the selfish get right. So you know how we do. I'm doing a quick little recap. And if you made it to this point, I want you to put in the comments, it's Delulu, D-E-L-U-L-U. Put Delulu in the comments if you made it to this point. Now, we're not calling anybody delusional. We're just simply saying that the selfish, they've got a pretty good lock on how to be beneficially Delulu. All right, so let's do our recap. The 4 things that the selfish get right is, first and foremost, they understand how to align themselves so that they are centered in their self. They understand their concept of self, and they understand how to self-advocate, and then they use moderation and abstaining in different ways to help them stay centered and focused on self. All right. The second one that we talked about is going to be where they do not compare themselves to others. And if they do, it's usually somebody that they perceive as below them, which is going to be most people. But there's no comparison. If there's a comparison, it's only to themselves, so that they are not waylaid down by societal pressures to fall into trends or any of the other things that society sometimes imprisons people by to make sure that you fit in. Okay. The third one is that they are really good at positioning themselves in authority and power when it comes to self. You're not going to get one over on them. They are going to make sure that they are advocating, sticking up for themselves, and letting you know, you're not the boss of me. You're not my daddy. All right. And then the last one is they have an ability to be delusional in ways that benefit them instead of detracting from them. And what we can learn about that is that we can make sure that we don't get stuck in trying to fulfill the perfectionistic model. We can use meta or even MVP, minimum viable product, or minimal viable production, if you will. But meta, the most effective tactic available, so that we're always staying in the now and self-advocating in a way that is a win-win for everyone. So guess what? Yeah, I want you to go on and watch this next video in your brilliant quest. Oh, I love you, my brilliant bows and beauties. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share, ring the notification bell so that you can get updates as to when we post videos or even go live. And I want to thank you. This is Michelle, your big sis for Brilliant Quest. I'm going to see you sooner than later. Bye. Don't forget to check the links in the description if you want to support or get a one-on-one with me, or if I've mentioned any books. All of that information is going to be there. Bye.